People just get too caught up in the term must draft or must avoid players, thinking, you know what, at all costs, I've got to grab this guy, or at all costs, I've got to avoid him. When really, that's not at all what we're talking about, or at least not what I'm talking about. And I don't think this is clarified enough. All I'm saying with a must draft player and a must avoid player, of which I've got 3 for you of each in today's video, so stick around, we got some great ones, is must draft. I really like them at their ADP. And if I'm drafting, maybe I come up a couple spots ahead of that ADP, I'm definitely going to grab them. And as far as must avoid goes, I just don't love them where they're being drafted. If they fall later in the draft, that doesn't mean I'm going to avoid them. I might think they're great around later because maybe everyone has the mindset that I do and they decide that they don't want them either. And then I fall on some gold. But just keep that in mind as we do that draft. I'm not saying I hate these guys, and I'm not saying I love these players to the point where you should be drafting them a full round and a half ahead of where they're going. That's all. Anyway, hit that thumbs up if you like what we're doing here, if you love fantasy football as much as we do, and subscribe to the channel. Well on our way to 10,000 subs. Thanks to you. It's been an awesome journey since we started this just a couple months back at the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. So let's get into it. Oh, and if you still aren't playing at Underdog Fantasy, you're just letting life pass you by. You'll get $25 when you sign up using the promo code Awesemo and get to compete in some monster tournaments that pay out over $1 million up top, or the puppy that pays $100K to first and is only $5 to enter. Best Ball's the greatest version of fantasy right now, and Underdog's by far the best place to play it. Use the promo code Awesemo when you go to underdogfantasy.com and start cashing, baby. Let's get something out of the way first when it comes to Ja'Marr Chase. He's not on this list because he's been dropping some passes at camp and in the preseason. He's on this list because he's being drafted 48th overall as the 24th receiver off the board on a team that already has multiple quality pass catching options. I really like Chase's career outlook, but his ADP continues to climb. And now you're drafting him ahead of Adam Thielen, who caught 14 touchdowns last year and finished as a top 10 wide receiver, and 1 pick after Deontay Johnson, who saw double-digit targets in 10 of the 13 games he played from start to finish. Now listen, I'm not saying I love Thielen this year, and I'm not saying Johnson's going to average over 10 targets per game, but I am saying that they're established receivers with proven production at the NFL level. Chase's struggles at camp and in the preseason are more so just a subtle reminder that maybe he isn't a sure thing in the first round as a rookie. And it's possible that we're overvaluing this guy because of how dominant he can be in the NFL and not how dominant he has been. It's not just that, though. Chase wasn't drafted onto a team that desperately needed another receiver. Actually, the Bengals probably should have drafted Penny Sewell, but they couldn't pass up the sexier pick even though their offensive line was shit last year. Why is this important? Well, let's just say Chase actually continues to struggle. Zach Taylor won't have to force feed him targets early on. That's why it's kind of crazy to think Tyler Boyd is being drafted so much later than Chase. Boyd was on pace to see 138 targets last season before Joe Burrow went down in week 11. His 86 targets and 69 receptions through 10 games when Burrow was healthy were 11th most in the league. And so were his 161 PPR points. Boyd has by far the lowest ADP among Bengals starting receivers, even though Burrow targeted him 8+ times in 70% of the games they played together, and he ran more routes than all but 4 receivers over that span. Boyd had an 80% reception rate with Burrow thanks to a league-leading 75 slot targets, and was clearly his safety valve, playing with a suspect offensive line and frequently forced to throw when chasing from behind. Now, obviously, T. Higgins was strong as a rookie and should be even better this year, while Ja'Marr Chase already has a rapport with Burrow and is expected to produce right away. But it's not like A.J. Green wasn't a 100-target player last year, even though he wasn't good, or that Burrow wasn't attempting over 40 passes per game. The truth is, I think all of Cincinnati is a bit overvalued on Underdog Fantasy right now, but I like the idea of taking some shots on Boyd much later than Higgins and Chase, where you'll have more risk tolerance and won't get burned as bad if things go south. I'm not out here saying Boyd's going to be the Bengals' clear wide receiver 1 or anything. Of course not. But he posted back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in 2018 and 19, would have easily eclipsed that mark last year had Burrow not gone down, and is also a second-round receiver who's only 27 years old. I still think there's some meat left on the bone here. I made a video earlier in the year where I was relatively high on Kareem Hunt, but as time went on and as I kept drafting, I just realized I wasn't getting much of him at all, if any. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I can draft players with much higher upside in this range, especially now that Myles Gaskin is going at 72 overall thanks to 1 preseason game, and receivers like Kenny Golladay, Courtland Sutton, and Antonio Brown are bookending him in the 6th round of the draft. Hunt finished as the RB10 last year, but he finished with fewer than 10 PPR points in 8 of 16 games. And while he's viewed by many as a back who's going to get volume in the passing game, Hunt was targeted more than 4 times only twice all year. He also played nearly 5 full games with Nick Chubb's sideline, which bolstered his rushing volume. Furthermore, Odell Beckham's healthy again, which should help the Browns' passing game get back on track. And I have a tough time seeing Hunt averaging the 12.3 attempts he got in 2020. Granted, Hunt doesn't need to be amazing. Hopefully you're drafting him as an RB3, being that he's the 25th running back off the board. But maybe I'm just not enamored with him because of his unspectacular outlook and limited ceiling unless Chubb goes down again, which in that case, you're in business. And I know Kevin Stefanski and Browns running back coordinator Stump Mitchell said either one of these backs can get the carries at any time, but Chubb just became the 6th highest paid running back in the league and is, in my opinion, the best pure rusher in football. Hunt is definitely a safe pick at his ADP, don't get me wrong. He's just not a very exciting one. I'm looking elsewhere. Corey Davis signed a 3-year, $37 million contract with the Jets, so they surely intend on using it. Rookie second-round pick Elijah Moore has been making waves at training camp and has as much hype as almost any first-year player heading into the season. I get it. But that's no reason for us to ignore the upside with Davis at his current ADP. Davis is being drafted right inside the top 50 at his position on Underdog, much of this likely being the result of countless bad fantasy seasons from anyone wearing a Jets jersey. Recency bias. But Adam Gase is gone, which alone should be enough for us to be encouraged with New York's future. And Zach Wilson is taking over at quarterback, which could go a number of ways, no doubt, but provides a kind of attractive unknown element to the situation where the ceiling could be much higher than we think. I'm careful not to put too much stock into the preseason, but Wilson targeted Davis on 6 of his 11 attempts in week 2 and is clearly locking on to him as his number 1 target early on. Davis has been targeted 10 times on 13 routes run through his first 2 preseason games, which is just absurd. And while Elijah Moore nurses a quad injury on the sidelines, it'll only give Davis more time to build a solid connection with his rookie quarterback, who has looked sharp early on. The truth about Davis is he'll likely never live up to the lofty expectations that were placed upon him when he was drafted 5th overall by the Titans back in 2017. But he's coming off his best season as a pro with 984 yards and 5 touchdowns in 14 games last year, while his 5 games with 100-plus receiving yards were 7th most in the NFL. It's also reasonable to assume that the Jets will throw considerably more than the Titans, who have had a bottom 3 pass play percentage in each of their last 3 seasons. We'll need to see the offensive line perform better than they have this summer, but given that the Jets drafted back-to-back first-rounders to bolster the line, I have confidence that they'll figure things out, and I love Davis at his current 97 ADP. For all of you Kyle Pitts truthers out there who are about to become apoplectic at my recommendation to not draft him at his ADP, settle down and hear what I'm saying before you light up the comment section, which I'm all for, by the way. Fire away. Just hear me out first. Pitts is an absolute freak, arguably the best tight end prospect ever. He's fast, has an insane catch radius, is an extremely crisp route runner for his size, and can be classified as a wide receiver despite being 6'6", 240. Pitts lined up in the slot and out wide at Florida plenty too, so he has experience there. He also won't have to contend with 2 elite receivers now that Julio Jones is out of Atlanta, which is just another reason to be excited about the rookie. But tight ends also need to know how to block in order to stay on the field. And while long-term this shouldn't be a problem with Pitts, it's one of the reasons so many tight ends fail to meet expectations. There's definitely a longer learning curve at the position too, as only 2 rookie tight ends have finished top 12 over the last decade. One of them being Rob Gronkowski, who finished tight end 11, and Evan Ingram, who finished tight end 5. But this wasn't exactly a spectacular season for tight ends. And only 1 rookie tight end has ever topped 1,000 yards receiving. That was Mike Ditka in 1961. The next closest, Jeremy Shockey in 2002 with 894 yards. Now, I know what you're thinking, right? But Pitts is not your average tight end. He's generational. He can line up anywhere on the field. And you're absolutely right. You're definitely right. But he has a 46 ADP as the 4th tight end off the board on Underdog. That's just so expensive for a rookie tight end, even if he has all the intangibles, even if he does block well as a rookie. TJ Hawkinson was drafted 8th overall a few years ago. And I'm not saying he's at the same level talent-wise as Pitts, but he's coming off a tight end 5 season, is the clear lead pass catcher in Detroit, and is coming off the board more than a full round after Pitts. Hawkinson has legit 1,000-yard upside this season and is going into year 3. This could absolutely come back to bite me. I get it. And if it does, I'll be the first person to eat my words. But I'd rather take Waller or Kittle in the 2nd or 3rd round or wait to draft a tight end later. Pitts is going to be special for sure. I just don't know if he's 4th round special as a rookie, where missing on a pick like this could really hurt. you got to head over to Awesemo.com. Check out this brand new draft kit that we've got. It's incredible. Created by experts who've profited over $7 million playing fantasy sports. For real, these guys are going to help you crush your drafts this year with tools like the Draft Wingman that's powered by projections from the #1 ranked daily fantasy sports player in the world, Awesemo himself, and includes a one-of-a-kind recommendation engine that takes into account your prior picks to ensure a well-rounded team and optimal draft. Draft Wingman is also outfitted with best ball specific recommendations, including our stack highlighting feature, which helps you create your all-important best ball stacks. If you want more details, or maybe you're already down to join us for an incredible NFL season, go to awesemo.com/draftkit and use the promo code WR, that's WR, to get the entire draft kit for only $9.95. We'll catch you over there. I've been waiting to talk about Darrell Henderson until we saw where his ADP settled at following the season-ending injury to Cam Akers. But more importantly, I wanted to see if the Rams are going to bring in a veteran back to muddy the waters. Well, Henderson is being drafted in the middle of the 4th round as the RB19, and the Rams haven't brought in anyone of significance to back him up, or worse yet, split carries. Right now on the depth chart behind Henderson are Xavier Jones, Jake Funk, and Otis Anderson. So this should come as no surprise to anyone that ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported last week that the Rams are, quote-unquote, all in on Henderson as they look to establish the run and help Matthew Stafford, who never had a single 1,000-yard rusher in Detroit and was forced to shoulder much of the offensive load throughout his career. And you have to think the reason why Sean McVay hasn't rushed to add depth at the position is because Henderson is actually good. The third-year running back is getting the lion's share of carries all throughout camp, and we know McVay won't play most of his starters in the preseason, so camp is what we go off of. And there's zero reason to believe that won't be the case in the regular season. This offense should be markedly improved now that Matthew Stafford is under center, and the Rams' run blocking went from bottom 7 in 2019 to top 5 in 2020. So Henderson should be running behind a strong line that, when they were dominant in 2018, featured an RB3 season from Todd Gurley, who would have been the RB1 had he not missed the final 2 games of the season with a bad knee. Now, they probably won't be 2018 level good, and I'm not saying Darrell Henderson is 2018 Todd Gurley. But top 10 is totally in play here, and Henderson has no one breathing down his neck. Last year was a 3-way backfield for most of the season, and the Rams finished 10th in rushing yards per game. They boast an elite defense that should keep the ball out of their opponent's hand and should see far more red zone trips on offense than in 2020. This is a dream scenario for any running back, and we're currently drafting Henderson just inside the top 20 at his position on Underdog. I really don't see how you wouldn't be thrilled to have him as your RB2, as LA's clear 3-down back. Now he just needs to stay healthy. Head over to Awesemo.com. Check out the draft kit we've got with the Draft Wingman and the built-in best ball features. It's awesome. All for $9.95 as long as you use that promo code WR at Awesemo.com/draftkit. I'm Dave Loughran of Awesemo Fantasy. Thanks for hanging out as always. Hit that thumbs up and subscribe, and we'll catch you back here for the next one. Peace.